Chapter 6 of Hunters Out of Space. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Elliot Miller. Hunters Out of Space by Joseph E. Killiam. Chapter 6. In the days that followed there was no time for rest. Thanks to the smaller prototype which had already gone into space, no elaborate tests were required of the new ship. Moreover, the scientists had taken centuries to go over the old ship, bolt by bolt, part by part, wire by wire. Improvements had been made, but these had been incorporated into the little prototype which was now successfully berthed within a cavern somewhere on the moon. Over 30 men and women had gone with it. Wolden was constantly in touch with them, and daily growing more envious of their position. Odin knew little of such matters, but he sat daily in the council table where progress reports and squawk sheets were examined and discussed. The speed with which they were developing the new ship was amazing. There was one innovation to be noted. Wolden referred to it as the fourth drive. Odin gathered that the old ship had been equipped with such a drive, but new principles and new mechanics had been added. Odin showed him a little book which had been privately printed in the world above some 15 years before. It was entitled Einstein and Einsteinian Space, with conjectures upon a trans-Einsteinian concept. Wolden said it had been written by a young refugee from the Nazis, and he doubted if over 2 or 3 copies of the manuscript were now in existence. Memories of concentration camps, poverty, and the internecine battles of the professors in a small college where the refugee was an assistant in the physics department had finally driven the poor fellow to suicide. "He was grasping at something new," Wolden explained. "His concept was only nascent, but such a mind! The book has been invaluable. Still it is nothing but a starting point, but such a starting point." Time passed. It was like working in a dream, where no sooner was one task done than another was ready. Odin ached. His head spun with all the information that Wolden had given him, the basic principles behind those machines that had gone into the ship. Then, at last, it was finished. A young girl who reminded him of Maya was hoisted up on the scaffold to the highest bulge of the hourglass-shaped craft. Workers and visitors stood below by the thousands while she spoke in a tiny microphone and swung a ruby-colored bottle against the ship. "You are christened the Nebula," she cried. "Go out into space." They had used a bottle of red wine for the christening. A shower of ruby glass and wine drops came sprinkling down. They fell slowly, like drops of blood, and the onlookers, who were by nature opposed to crowds, began to disperse. "That girl," Odin grasped Gunnar's arm. "Who is she?" Gunnar looked at him curiously. "Her name is Nea. A distant cousin of Maya's. Also a distant cousin to Grimhagen." Nothing else was said, but Odin suddenly realized that since the day he had been unwillingly carried back to the world above in an elevator, he had not noticed any girl at all. That night, Jack Odin could not sleep, although he had never slept more than 5 hours at a time since returning to Opal. Getting up, he found a little radio and turned it to a frequency which was occasionally caught by some of the stations above. A hillbilly band was playing and a comic was singing, "So I kissed her little sister and forgot my Clementine." He turned off the radio with a curse and finally got to sleep, and dreamed of star spaces and emerald worlds ruled by beautiful bronze girls who looked like Maya, or maybe a bit like Nea, until the worlds streaked across the dark sky like comets, and Gunnar was shaking him by the arm and a streak of light was coming in at the window. "Ho, sluggard! We start to load the ship today. How long have you been waiting for this? We're going to savor each moment, remember. And you lie here like a turtle in the sun." Odin yawned. "The lists are ready. Everything is packed. I myself have checked the lists." Gunnar laughed. "How much time have your people spent checking lists? You're the world's best list checkers. And the worst. I wish we were just a handful of warriors going out for a fight. But whole families are coming along. Apparently the Brons intend to sow their seeds among the stars. And with families. I'll wager that your lists are not worth a darn needle. Something will be left behind. A slice of some bride's wedding cake, little Nordo's favorite toy, Papa's best pocket knife, Mama's button box." The strong little man made a wry face. "Bah! This is no trip for families. They want too much. They are never satisfied. With warriors it is much different. They can take things as they are and grumble a bit. Or if they grumble too much, Gunnar can slap them silly. But families, on a trip like this? No." "Well, they're going," Odin retorted. "From what I hear, you were the only one who voted against them. So you had better get ready to listen to the patter of little feet and squalling babies, and mamas and papas arguing over whose idea it was to make this trip anyway." "Oh, well, it does not matter. I am not of the bronze. But I go because of a promise." Gunnar shrugged and his face appeared sad and seamed. "My Frida and the boys will be here today. I want you to meet them. I've spent over half my days wandering, Jack Odin, but now I have a sick feeling inside me, and I think to myself, if I could go back to the farm with Frida and the boys, I could work there and die an old, old man, as my father and his father did before me. But the wanderlust is heavy upon me. Frida understands. And I swore that I would go after Grimhagen, and after Maya. But this way I die up there among the stars some day, and no one, unless it be you and Maya, will think of Gunnar." Odin slapped his arm across Gunnar's shoulders. "You are chief among the Nibelings. Stay here with your family. I will go out there to the stars, and I will always remember Gunnar. Faith, man, you owe us nothing. The debts are ours." But Gunnar shook his head. "I swore by my sword, and I go." A few hours later, they stood at the water's edge and waited for Frida and the boys. It was not long before a boat hove into sight, and soon Gunnar was helping Frida and the three sons upon the landing. Family meetings always made Odin ill at ease. He stood there shuffling his feet. Frida was a short, broad woman, with big breasts and broad hips. Her eyes, the palest blue, were still beautiful. Odin guessed that when she was young her face had matched her eyes. But the face was worn, and the hand that she offered him was calloused. She was dressed in linsey woolsey, and the overalls of the three sons were also homespun. The three lads, miniature copies of Gunnar, stood there solemnly. Each wore a new straw hat with a black and red band around it. They were barefooted. Odin guessed that the hats had been brought special for the occasion. For the next 3 days Odin was kept busy by Ato. There were a million things to go on the ship. The Brons had done a wonderful job of warehousing. All was packaged and tagged. A place for each box or machine was already marked and numbered on the prints of the nebula. The tunnel had been cleared for 2 lanes of trucks and tractors. Steadily, the line of laden cars moved down to the ship, and steadily another line came back for more supplies. Odin was assigned to superintend one of the warehouses, and he was both annoyed and pleased to find that the girl Nia was his assistant. She was a hard worker, and pleasant enough, though she said little to him, and the only time he saw her flustered was when she ordered a young man of the Brons out of the building. Jack felt a bit sorry for the fellow. He was scarcely out of his teens and was all shook up because Nia was going out there into space instead of staying here in Opal with him. So the work went on at a furious pace, and before he realized that 3 days had gone, he was back at the improvised docks with Gunnar and his family. The parting was a quiet one. Gunnar told the boys to mind their mother and not stay out late at night. "Get strong muscles on your legs and shoulders," he told them. "A man is no good at thinking, and he never knows what will happen next. The muscles will keep him going, and after the muscles are gone, a fighting heart will carry him a little farther." No tears were shed. They talked of little things, and laughed at old jokes that Gunnar's grandfather had told him. One of those family jokes that never seemed very funny to an outsider. After that, Frida worked the conversation around to the voyage that Gunnar would soon be making. "They say it is cold out there," she ventured cautiously. "Oh yes, very cold," Gunnar agreed. "Then you wrap up good, Gunnar. We wouldn't want you to have a chill." Gunnar scoffed. "I've never had a chill in my life."
Oh, such talk. Don't pretend